Ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to rumble. It's actually been a month since we last met. Unbelievable that it's been that long. A lot's happened. I know a few things that's happened. I believe Sam Bankman-Fried is on his way to the US right now to face a Manhattan court. And the head of Alameda and the co-founder of FTX are cooperating with authorities.
Mm.
That's big.
Plead guilty to fraud, apparently.
Yeah,
That's
it.
I didn't appreciate all the different types of fraud either. And they've been charged with a number of different types of fraud. It was interesting that SBF got charged by the US authorities one day before he was due to testify before the Senate committee. That's interesting timing.
Yes, I don't think that's a coincidence, but then I am like tin hat conspiracy guy. That somebody didn't want him to talk, right?
Do you think it's someone didn't want him to talk, or they didn't want to, the regulators didn't want to take the risk of what stupid things he might have said, or what the bankruptcy person, John Ray, would have said that would make the regulators look foolish for not having acted earlier? Either's likely or possible. But I suppose my only strong view is that it wasn't a coincidence that of the timing of his arrest. What they were trying to not have him say, I don't know yet. But I mean, some of the things said by, was it Mr. Wonderful, were pretty sketchy as well in that hearing as well. So yeah, I mean, they were obviously trying to. They had like a script that they wanted the hearing to follow, and whoever was pulling the strings decided that having Sam testify wasn't going to help that script. So yeah. Okay. Celsius, their bankruptcy filing is being heard in court at the moment.
Yep.
Probably early days for that. One of the other things I'm aware of is that one of the audit firms working with crypto has decided to suspend their crypto services for audit. Following the collapse of FTX, there was a huge rush to get proof of reserves. And Mazars has decided to stop working with Crypto.com, Binance, and KuCoin, something like that. Anyway, I think they're concerned about reputation.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I think that I suppose the upside of performing those audits was outweighed by the downside of getting them wrong, and they probably didn't feel that they had the expertise, or they weren't being given the transparency of information to allow them to do those audits effectively, which I think I can completely understand, right? Like even from my limited experience of trying to substantiate balance sheet in the crypto space, like unless you have complete transparency of information and access to all the wallets at source, like you can't, you can't ascertain exactly what the balances are and where they are, and like completeness, and I mean it's a mess. So yeah, I'm not surprised that they're stepping away from that. I'm not, and I think it does leave a big gulf or gap in the market for somebody to fill. And somebody will, I hope, develop the confidence and the expertise to fill that space, because there's going to be a large demand for that. So yeah, watch this space. I mean, maybe they'll get back into it when they've upskilled, or they've kind of completed some like policies around what information clients must provide them with if they're to perform audits and things like that, because they obviously felt that their processes weren't sufficient at that time. Yeah. And I suppose I think Binance was the audit they were working on when they came to that decision. And I don't think there's any more complicated, larger structure than Binance in terms of client funds and reserves and wallets. I mean, the CEO of Binance, CZ, just issued a statement, and I think it was yesterday, explaining their hot and cold wallets and how they use them and how they transfer funds between them when clients move their money, etc. And it is complicated. So from an audit perspective, I can see that being a real challenge. And I'm not surprised that the Binance audit was the one that made them realize that they didn't have the expertise.
Yeah, there's reporting around the Binance audit as well, that Binance were having significant influence over how that audit was conducted. probably more than what you'd expect, which kinds of diminishes the impartiality of an audit. But just on wallets as well, one of the challenges that the bankruptcy person John Ray has with FTX is there's apparently a huge lack of record keeping in the organization. One of the reasons why it probably collapsed. Not the only reason, but there could be a possibility that there are wallets out there. They've got no idea what they are because there's no records kept of the wallet addresses. So it does present a challenge for the industry, sort of maintaining proper, documentation and controls around wallets. The other huge piece of news in the industry is the Donald. Did anybody buy the Donald's NFT?
I mean, yeah, it was humorous because I think he primed the US media saying there's a big announcement coming, and then many of the media firms were just kind of left almost a little bit like what the just they didn't understand what was going on with this. They couldn't believe this was the announcement that he'd spoken of. They thought it was a bit of a joke. I mean, and he made a clean $4.5 million in 12 hours, which is pretty good though, not bad. And unfortunately I missed the boat and missed my Donald NFT. Although isn't there some news around the images for those NFTs being like, I don't know, stolen or used from some other source, and he didn't even have permission to use them or something like that? Like it's just it's a mess. But then let's look at the upside of this, right? Like you've got, I'm not against NFTs as a concept. I'm against meaningless like pictures of monkeys or whatever, because I don't see the point. But then I don't think that the technology of an NFT is not useful in some form, from artists being able to recoup like secondary sales sort of commission on their artworks, or musicians having NFTs for like concert tickets or like whatever. Like I'm not totally closed to the use case of NFTs. So having NFTs like as a technology being made more available to a new section of the population, I don't think that's a bad thing, right? And like Donald Trump still has some extremely passionate fans that will now potentially could see NFTs as being legitimized through the actions of Donald Trump, which is probably not a bad thing, I hope, long term. I mean, those Trump fans that perhaps were close to NFTs and crypto technology now potentially have a MetaMask wallet where they're holding their Donald Trump NFT. I mean, I don't know. It was issued on Polygon, so I'm assuming that MetaMask would work. Maybe that's good for more widespread adoption. But like, I just wish that there was a way of legitimizing like Bitcoin specifically, rather than like crypto in general, to those sections of the population. I mean, Trump did come out, I think, last year saying how against Bitcoin he was because it threatens the US dollar. Like that's kind of why I see Bitcoin as a positive, not a negative. But
I mean, Trump isn't the first celebrity to put his name behind an NFT, and this has been happening for the past year. There's been like, Justin Bieber, Stephen Curry, NBA players, they're all putting their name behind NFTs, and that's why it's kind of like cult followings, or if you follow this star, then, if you want, it's one way to be connected to it. And I see like, for celebrities, I guess it's a way for them to connect with their fans, which is, providing them exclusive access to I don't know, whatever it is. I think it's stupid as well. Like behind like exclusive access to a JPEG, right? But at the end of the day, it's kind of like membership, which is why these pictures of these apes going nuts, I think they are useless, but what they do provide is exclusive access to, a club. It's almost as if, when you go on golf memberships for certain clubs, like people pay like, hundreds of thousands of dollars. And it's like, it's not too different here, except the hobby is not a sport, it's collecting JPEGs in this case. But on the topic of NFTs, I think there is a massive use case in gaming, because up until this point, a lot of gaming companies, the way they've sold their products has been through the game itself. Okay, you can buy this video game for $50 and that's it. And then they slowly moved to a subscription model, which is, okay, if you could pay X amount of dollars a month, then you can get better looking characters or heroes or whatever. But now with NFTs, it's actually an ability for gamers or people who play these video games to actually own the assets that they have in those games. And I think conceptually, I think it's a really good use case for NFTs, but how sustainable it is, I don't think we're there yet. But I think it's fascinating. Like the fact that we're getting to a point where there's companies that are employing people as game economists. So how can you create an ecosystem of sustainable finance within this game? It's like nothing to do with the real world, but how do you create a economy that's sustainable in itself?
The other thing about NFTs and gaming that I heard was that they have these dynamic NFTs, dNFTs, and essentially as your player is a token, an NFT. As your player gains more experience and goes through the different stages, etc., that those attributes are added to the NFT, which makes that NFT be more valuable. Have you seen instances or heard about instances where the characters or the NFT as a player can also be sold on, or maybe hired out?
Yeah, I haven't heard about dynamic NFTs. I'm not sure how that works though. Like, do they do like NFTs on top of NFTs to make it constantly growing? Because I presume the whole point of an NFT is it never changes. So I'm not sure how that works, but it sounds pretty interesting.
The way they describe is you have attributes being added to it, and so if you're thinking about I just did this blockchain course, and one of the ideas we came up with was having an NFT representing a car. That's a dynamic NFT, then you can add attributes to that NFT over its life. So regarding its mileage, its repair history, etc., etc. So by the time it comes to where the owner wants to sell it, although they're not going to get any value from the NFT itself, the NFT represents the value of the external asset by the attributes that it has.
I did once. But just for research perspective, I signed up to some crypto game on the Binance Smart Chain, and played around with some characters and built XP and all that. It was an awful game, and I suppose that's why it failed. But I think most crypto games focus more on the crypto side of things and the economy, and less on making it a good game to start with. But these characters, as they built XP, you could buy and sell those characters like as an NFT. So those were dynamic NFTs. So that does exist, unless I'm missing something, because you like the characters with more XP would cost more, and then you'd buy it and you'd carry on playing with it and build more XP, and then you could sell it on again. So that's kind of technology or functionality does exist. And I think this is like a use case for sure. Like if you think about a company like Blizzard, where they've got StarCraft, World of Warcraft, all those kind of games, where you can earn items or find items, then you could like sell those on the blockchain. I can kind of get that. I mean, these are all like really niche, small use cases that don't change the world for any better. They just make gaming more kind of interesting, right? Like, and that's kind of fun. That's fun to talk about, but like I'm far more interested in the way like Bitcoin changes the world for the better, and like computer gaming isn't really one of the areas that I'm focusing on. I think it's interesting. I'm not saying it's not, and I think for some people that's probably how they first get a digital wallet. But this isn't going to like fundamentally change the world, uplift like third world economies and the like. Whereas
arguable there.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, I know when Axie Infinity was a big craze.
Yeah, exactly.
Most of the Philippines was like they quit their real jobs and started all playing Axie Infinity because it paid more than like their real job did, right? But then when that economy collapsed through some tokenomics within Axie Infinity, like they were pretty destroyed. So
yeah, exactly.
I kind of feel like, from my experience and what I've researched on crypto gaming so far, they're just like, I hate using the word Ponzi, but it felt like a Ponzi scheme that when more players are entering the game, it all made sense. But when that's like kind of plateaued out or dipped, then the tokenomics didn't work and didn't support like the profit margin that was in place when players first joined. So you've got to be pretty clever with the tokenomics. And I can't see how the tokenomics work when the user base is stagnating. Like I think they all rely on an increase in user base. And like that for me is pretty much a Ponzi, right? Ponzi's work when new people are entering and they don't when people aren't entering. So yeah, that's my view on that.
What about if the tokens were used for licensing of the game? So usually you got to pay $100 or whatever to get access to the game. What about if that was via the tokens and that?
Yeah, and I exactly. And I'm not saying I'm not saying NFTs aren't useful in gaming. They absolutely are. Like I play some silly strategy card game, and if you've got like a really rare card, you could sell it to another person. But at the moment, if I've got a really rare, valuable, in inverted commas, because I can't sell it, card, I can't sell that to anybody. So that's fine. I mean, if I was a company developing these games, though, why would I adopt that technology when at the moment at the moment, like people have to pay the company to earn more cards or items or whatever? Why would I make it easier for them to transfer between each other? Like unless there's a healthy commission that Blizzard would earn from allowing that, it doesn't really make sense, right? Like rather just keep the items owned by Blizzard, basically. Like that makes that for me as a company trying to maximize profits, I don't see the appeal of putting it on the blockchain. I think the appeal is more for the user base. So if you had two games that were identical, but one of them you could buy and sell items on the blockchain and one you couldn't, then yeah, I suppose as a user, you'd choose the one where you could transfer items, because then if I've played like a certain game like World of Warcraft for a few years and I've got some really valuable items and I've said, that's it, man, I'm having kids now, I'm going to stop playing games. Like I could just sell my characters and swords and armor to somebody else and recoup some of my investment. That makes sense, right? But for the company like developing the game, what's in it for them? Why would they move to that model?
Yeah. Imagine if have you guys played Uno or Uno?
Yeah.
Imagine if each card was like an NFT, and then how much the wild card would go for, or the draw for.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. Like I used to, at university, I used to play these strategy games called Magic the Gathering. I mean, I know I'm giving away too much about my geeky tendencies here, but like some of those cards were worth like crazy amounts of money. Some of the original first edition like cards. And if those are like NFTs, because most of those strategy card games are now like on phones, tablets, etc. So like they're digital versions of the cards. If you could transfer those cards between people, it would be very much the same way it was in Magic the Gathering, where you'd go to like trading meetups and trade cards. And when I stopped playing those games, I just sold my entire collection for, at the time, a large sum of money. But these days, like if I stopped playing a digital card game, I can't sell anything, right? So I do get that. But
so just on collectibles. So the thing that I struggle with NFTs from I bought a piece of art like those apes. What is it? The Ape Yacht Club?
Bored Ape Yacht Club, yeah.
So you can't actually display it, can you? How do you display it? How do you paint it?
You can. Certain social media platforms have integrated with certain blockchains, so you can display it. But you could also just save a JPEG down of that ape and just display it as well. I think there is a difference in that one of them has like this like verification tag on the NFT to show that you actually own that NFT. But like
anyone can copy that. So
anyone can. Yeah, I personally, I don't see the appeal. Like I don't get that at all. Just buy Bitcoin, change the world.
And the final thing I'm aware about probably about buying NFTs is that I heard PayPal have integrated with MetaMask for US customers, so you can swap your fiat for Ether via PayPal if you're a US customer using MetaMask. Not that I do that. Mike, you've mentioned Bitcoin a lot.
Have I? That's unlike me.
Yes. I detect that you're pro Bitcoin. I don't know what tells me that, but look, I think Bitcoin as an invention is unique. It's groundbreaking. With all these exchanges going under, all these central parties, these CeFi parties going under, I've been transferring my funds off or from those third parties to my own personal wallet, which I have to maintain custody of. And I have to say, the process from transferring it to the exchange or the CeFi platform to my wallet, it's not too bad. It's pretty easy. But then on top of that, if you want to enhance your security, you've got to buy a cold wallet, and then you have to set up the cold wallet, and you've got to transfer between your hot wallet and your cold wallet. And Ranald and I were chatting during the week. It seems like the infrastructure at the moment, it's not that conducive to widespread adoption. I mean, I had to spend quite a bit of time executing the transactions, making sure I was using the right blockchain to do it. So the rails, right payment rails, and make sure that I was putting in the right addresses or right receiving address as well, because you don't want to send it to the wrong public address. So look, they're my thoughts. That I sort of think Bitcoin's a great invention. I think it can change the world for the good, but at the same time, it's challenging to use.
That's a lot to unpick there. So challenging to use. The first time I remember sending Bitcoin from an exchange to my own wallet, like it was nerve-wracking. It was something new that I hadn't done before, and like it was quite a stressful process. And then every time I've done it since then, it's got more and more second nature, to the point now where I don't really even think about it. I just do it. It's like I can do it while doing something else usually, because it's just a technology that I'm used to. So yeah, it's like a kind of a barrier to entry, right? But then the first time I sent an email, I got kind of confused. I remember it. I was like late teens, and like I didn't understand this concept of email, and it took a little bit of getting used to that technology. And now, do you think about like how to send an email? God, like it's just the easiest thing in the world, right? And I kind of see Bitcoin is going the same direction. I think that's the whole thing with cold wallets and hot wallets. I don't think a cold wallet storage mechanism is something that you're going to be using every day. I think that's when you've like built up a savings amount in a hot wallet and you want to transfer some of that into cold. So you'd probably be using that like once a month or something like that. I don't think that's something like an everyday use type of thing. The same way, like if go back a few hundred years or whatever, and you're taking some gold to put in a bank vault or something, you're not going to keep putting a little bit of gold in, a little bit of gold out. You're going to just do that in big amounts, right? So I think it's about getting used to hot wallets and the technology of using like the Lightning Network and things like that. I think that's where people should focus their energy, because that's the kind of technology that you'd be using on a daily basis, right? Like if you and I on this call, I could like while talking just set up a Lightning invoice for 1,000 sats and hold it up to the screen, and you could just pay me 1,000 sats and it'd be done instantaneously. And neither of us should have really spent much thought doing that. It's that easy, right? Like it's just a QR code. You scan it, you say yes, pay, and it'll be in my wallet instantaneously. So I don't see that as too challenging in terms of a technology to get used to. The first time will be challenging. You just need somebody to give you a bit of help.
Yeah.
And then from then on, it should move to second nature pretty quickly. So I'm kind of a bit sympathetic to the idea that it's challenging and stressful.
It's not only that, the bit that I left off as well are the seed phrases. So remembering having a place to store your seed phrases, 12 or 24 words, whatever your device or wallet is.
Yeah. I agree in some ways, but that's probably because we are we've become less comfortable in taking responsibility to store our own wealth, because we all have like bank accounts, and if you lose your PIN number, you just phone the bank and work it out, or like you're not ever responsible for like custody of your own wealth in the modern world. And this is like a shift in that we are taking responsibility again. So yeah, like I do worry a little bit about my storage of seed phrases, etc. But if you have significant wealth in a digital wallet, cold wallet, you should obviously have that seed phrase stored down in a number of different places. One inside your house, and one maybe in a safety deposit box in a bank. And that way you've kind of got the hedge. But like, is that a big deal? I mean, it's a big deal because we're not used to doing that. But if you held a lot of your wealth in gold, you'd probably have a safety deposit box and have the gold in a safety deposit box. You wouldn't keep that under your bed, would you? So is it any difference? I do see the downside to it, because if you lose your 12 words or your house burns down and you didn't have a backup, then you just lose that Bitcoin. It's gone. I've got friends that's it's very Game of Thrones in a way. Like before they go to bed, they just recite their 12-word seed phrase, and to the point where it's just second nature, and they always have that seed phrase in their mind and can recall it. So they do have it saved down in a hard copy somewhere as well. But if they lost access to it, they could reinstall their cold wallet from memory. Like that's pretty powerful. Like I think most people are capable of memorizing 12 words if they put their mind to it.
Yeah, that's true.
Interesting point. Yeah. So I heard the story about refugees actually storing their seed phrases, because when they travel across borders, they're prone to getting their possessions stolen. So having a seed phrase in your mind, then perfect. So we get to earn that risk.
Yeah.
I mean, we lived in a world where we had to remember phone numbers before mobiles, so I'm sure it can't be too difficult to remember a handful of words.
Yeah. It's just because it's an extra step, an extra bit of responsibility that people aren't used to. And people are inherently, I believe, quite lazy, and they don't want to do those kind of things. But it depends what the alternative is. If the alternative is sticking with the current system and allowing central banks and governments to carry on stealing from us, which I think is the current state, then yeah, sure. Then just carry on. Don't take responsibility. But for those of us that want to challenge the current status and want to take ownership back and self-custody and take our liberty back, then memorizing 12 words to me is a small price to pay.
Well, we just need a CeFi platform that's not a bad actor, but as history has shown, it's
that's an interesting point. Yeah, I mean, that was one thing I wanted to mention on this call. That's a good segue, Ranald, is that certain exchanges, centralized platforms, custodians of client funds have come out with like blogs or media posts that are kind of trying to align themselves correctly with this world of like Bitcoin and crypto. And one that I read the other day that I really enjoyed was one from Bitfinex. I don't know if you'd read it. But I'm happy to send it to you guys and post it in the show notes, Peter. But basically, they were like almost making it quite clear that they believed in what Bitcoin stood for. They believe in self-custody. They're grateful to what Bitcoin gave this ecosystem and birthed and all those kind of things. But they will continue to do the right thing with the client funds that people choose to leave with them, but they're still encouraging people to do the right thing and look after their own coins. Like it felt like they hit a nice chord in terms of, even though they make money out of people leaving funds with them, they were still encouraging the right behavior in their clients. And I think that's important. And I think those CeFi platforms that align themselves with like what Satoshi had pretty much said in the white paper, those are the ones that I would trust more. And so, yeah, like those platforms that make it easy to withdraw your funds and encourage you to do so, and don't have these long lockup periods that make it really difficult to pull your money out. Nexo, like it's like just make it kind of like be part of what Bitcoin was trying to achieve. Don't try and make money out of people's inability to use Bitcoin correctly. Like that's my worry with a lot of the centralized players in this market. So yeah, those are the kind of things to look out for. But some of the platforms and exchanges are really good at making it easy to withdraw funds. Like Kraken integrating with the Lightning Network, I think was a really, really big positive thing. I'm surprised Binance hasn't done the same. I think they should. I think for small balances of Bitcoin, why not enable Lightning and enable customers to move their funds into a Lightning address? I think that's a great thing to do. And just have like tutorials and videos on the websites that just help people. Help people know how to, in a low risk way, move their funds into self custody.
100%. I think that's what it's all going to be. But it's you're always going to have a market of people who aren't 100% comfortable with dealing with their own assets. It's partly because we've become so reliant on outsourcing custody. But if you can get one major player that becomes like the gold standard of the gold standard of custody of digital assets, then that does the proof of reserves and doesn't do anything else, just purely multi-sig custody, and that's all they do. Maybe there's might be easier for adoption of Bitcoin. Maybe this already exists, but yeah.
It doesn't already exist where I can give a third party my Bitcoin or hold my keys, so I don't have to worry about that. Because one of the things I'm a little bit of a, I wouldn't say negative is the word, but I always picture when I'm writing down my seed phrase, I always picture someone coming through the front door and stealing my stuff and rummaging through where I stored my seed phrase. So that's my fear. And is there a third party who can sort of mitigate that risk, mitigate that fear? And do we know how much they charge for that service? I mean, Ranald, can you hold my seed phrase?
I can if you trust me with it.
I feel like we need to have like a shift in people taking responsibility for their own seed phrase. And I know maybe this is a big ask, and maybe this is why I'm wrong about this whole thing. But like trying to recreate the banking system where we don't have to take responsibility is not the point of this. The point of this is to get people comfortable taking responsibility for their own seed phrase, their own cybersecurity. And like so many people fought so hard for the privacy that we now have in public-private key encryption, etc. Like, this is too much of an opportunity not to make the most of. And so every time I speak to anybody about Bitcoin, I always include like a large amount of talk on taking self-custody and not leaving it on exchanges. And despite that, most of them still leave it on exchanges.
Do you think CDBCs are going to help with the adoption and people getting used to managing a wallet?
Yes, in some ways,
with a little bit of money. When we're talking about significant money,
yeah,
I think it's a different story. Like I've had no problems holding like $100 or whatever on a Lightning wallet, or what's that one that's on the Moon wallet? But when we're talking about the millions that I have in Bitcoin, not really. I wouldn't be comfortable holding that on my phone. You can't see my phone, but holding that on my phone. It needs to actually be stored in a cold wallet.
Yeah, okay. There's obviously like a breakpoint above which you go to a cold wallet. But I have like some hot wallets with some sats in there. So if ever I go into a vendor merchant that accepts Bitcoin, I want to be able to pay in Bitcoin. Because I quite enjoy it, and it's still kind of a bit of fun, and the novelty factor is still there for me. But also I want to support any merchant that is accepting Bitcoin, right? Like that's something that I've kind of strive to do. But like we should be quite comfortable, I believe, with certain wallets that are on the phone. I don't think that's a bad idea. But as you say, like you don't have more than a few $100 in it. But then I kind of feel like you don't have that much cash on you either. Like you don't hold all your wealth in cash and carry that around in your pocket. And I kind of liken compare the Moon wallets to the amount of cash you would hold. So as long as you've got like the rest of your Bitcoin somewhere where you can top up your Moon wallet, your Lightning balance whenever you want, then I think that's fine. I think that's how we should all work. But yeah, like it is a bit of a hassle getting used to the tech. But like maybe like if we spoke again in a few months, Peter, you'd be much more comfortable with it, and you wouldn't be as negative as you said on this technology or people's adoption of this technology.
I think transferring from an exchange back to a wallet, I'm now okay with that. I found myself doing it quite quickly, but as more, I think where I got a bit stuck was buying the cold wallet, setting it up, writing down 24 seed word phrase, and then putting in another code into the cold wallet as well. So having all that just to protect my savings, whereas if it was with a bank, it's automatically protected up to 100K, I think, around about that. And I don't really have to remember much, because if I forget it, then I just call the bank up and reset my password.
Yeah. Yeah, it's about getting used to it. And it's also about like not being lazy in terms of your security around that 24-word phrase. Like have a backup somewhere. And maybe that's with somebody that's, the executor of your will, or somebody like that you can kind of store it with, or it's maybe in a safety deposit box at a bank. I mean, that's my thinking. What you shouldn't do is store it digitally, like in any sort of form on your phone or in an email or on a laptop. Like because that's hackable, right? And that's, I believe, how many people's wallets have been hacked.
Well, we saw this week, there was a video going around Twitter of that police officers pulling over a guy, and they searched his belongings and they found this piece of paper with 24 words on it, 12 or 24 words on it. And the copper thought it was, this was in the States, the police officer thought it was some heist or something this guy was planning. He showed the other police officer, he goes, "Oh, this is that crypto stuff. This is like a phrase." So so anyway, the police body cam caught this guy's seed phrase. So I hope before that footage made its way out, he cleared out that wallet or back the seed phrase.
Well, I suppose the biggest risk security wise is how do you safeguard against what they call the $5 wrench attack?
Exactly.
Yeah. Like it doesn't matter what you do in terms of saving backups in bank vaults or whatever, but if somebody goes and buys a wrench for $5 and hits you over the head long enough until you give them the seed phrase, that's always going to work, right?
Yeah.
So protecting yourself against that means not having that seed phrase available to you, having it in a bank vault, so that no matter how many times they hit you, you actually can't give it to them. So that's another attack to think about. But then for most of us, like, I mean, I don't have that much wealth, not anymore anyway. So like, is it worth hitting me over the head enough times to get my money? Probably not. But
so I think the whole point is it's anonymous anyway. I mean, you can go up to anyone on the street and just take a stab at it. Who knows how much they have in their bank account?
Yeah. And that's why you shouldn't really ever talk about how much Bitcoin you own, right? Like you could have half a Bitcoin, 0.1 of a Bitcoin, or 100 Bitcoin. But like, I wouldn't want to know, and I wouldn't want anybody to ask me, because that kind of helps that guy with the $5 wrench.
Well, if anybody with a $5 wrench is watching, I don't have a significant amount of Bitcoin, so.
Exactly. I spent my Bitcoin on this cap. Actually, I didn't. I got a good story on this cap. I went to a Bitcoin meetup in Bedford at the Rail Bedford football ground, which anybody in the UK or anybody coming through the UK, I'd highly recommend going to. It's a football club run on a Bitcoin standard by Peter McCormack, who is the host of the What Bitcoin Did podcast. But the one I went to, there was a presentation by a guy from Slovakia. And he runs a Bitcoin mining company that's moving over to Paraguay to make use of the hydroelectric power near the Itaipu hydroelectric dam on the Paraguayan-Brazilian border, which I thought was amazingly fascinating because I've been there and I'd thought of it in terms of Bitcoin mining before. But I liked his cap, and I tweeted him afterwards and messaged him and I said, where'd you get that cap? I really need one. And it's from I think Slovakian website that only shipped to Slovakia, so I couldn't buy one. But he kindly organized me one and sent it through, and it arrived in the post today. So
Oh wow, what a story.
I know, and I've offered to send him some sats to thank him, but he said Merry Christmas. So there you go, generous Bitcoiners. He's got an amazing, I think in Honduras island, he's set up a Bitcoin community, or he's part of setting up a Bitcoin community out there. So he's doing some great work in Bitcoin. So there you go. There's my little plug for my mate who sent me a cap.
Yeah, no, there is really good work going on for Bitcoin. It probably doesn't get marketed enough unless you're tapped into the Bitcoin network. So there's on the use of electricity. So there was that sort of fear around the Bitcoin was going to be the largest user of energy in the world, I think, by a certain year. And there's that didn't happen, obviously. And one of the points that somebody who's into this in the detail made was that the market, the Bitcoin mining industry goes through cycles where obviously when the price is high and certain other conditions are met, you're going to have a lot of electricity being devoted to Bitcoin. And as the price drops, then there's going to be miners who are forced out of the industry. So there's a lower electricity usage. One of the good points he made was that there are actually good use cases for Bitcoin mining from electricity perspective or energy perspective. One of the things that he mentioned, I don't know a lot about it, is the use of methane in garbage dumps. So using the methane there, which obviously I don't think it's a good thing for it to be trapped under the surface. Actually, I'm not a scientist, so maybe it is okay. But essentially, he spoke about methane in rubbish dumps powering Bitcoin mining operations.
Yep. I mean, the energy side of Bitcoin is fascinating, and you're right that at the current depressed price level, it's causing a lot of problems for miners. There was another one that announced going bankrupt, I think yesterday or the day before. So miners are struggling, but Bitcoin, it's that the energy needed for Bitcoin can come from any source at any point in time. So it's the perfect user of last resort. So if you want something to encourage the production of more renewable energy, be it methane, be it wind, be it solar, be it hydro, like Bitcoin is the thing, because I believe that one of the main reasons holding back more production of renewable energy is the fact that at some points in time, it's not monetizable because there's just an excess of production for the grid. So the production exceeds demand, all the batteries are full, you've got nowhere to pump that electricity. So it's wasted. Whereas if you've got, during those periods, you've got a way of monetizing that excess energy or electricity, then it pays to build more renewable energy plants. So it kind of Bitcoin mining fills in the cracks in the grid and soaks up that excess supply, at any points where you don't need it for something else, which is fantastic. At the moment, when there isn't enough renewable energy produced, Bitcoin probably does use some dirty energy, but so do tumble dryers, right? So we need to get better at the production of clean energy across the board. But I do think that the general trend or that which Bitcoin encourages is a shift towards renewable energy, which I think is really powerful.
Yeah. The other use case that I heard was that there was an old coal, what do they call it? A coal mining facility. Basically, they left some coal there and the miner wasn't going to clean it up, whichever company that was. And so a Bitcoin mining company moved in, purchased the site, moved in and essentially cleaned up all the residual coal that was left. So they didn't dig out more coal from the ground. They just cleaned everything up and used the existing coal to power their Bitcoin mining operation, which I think is although it's not a renewable energy, it's cleaning up the environment for the rest of society in a way.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm still very bullish or very positive on the impact that Bitcoin can have on the environment. But I kind of feel like for it to have that positive impact, we need to get out of this bear cycle and people need to start realizing the use case and the positives for Bitcoin. And, with that, the price should recover. And as the price recovers, then it will encourage more renewable energy production. So I think that's kind of where we hopefully need to go. But like in times like this where there's so much negativity, it's difficult to see where the next bull run is going to come from. And there are many articles in big publications suggesting that's the last Bitcoin bull run we're ever going to see, and that's it. And I think probably the same was said in 2018, but I wasn't around from a Bitcoin perspective in 2018. So we'll see. But like I'm still extremely positive. There was an interesting podcast I started listening to this morning. They were debating is crypto a religion, which I think is an interesting one, because there are a lot of similarities, right? Like in terms of the way you get like these people preaching and the passion and how strongly they believe in it. Yep. And in my life, I kind of feel like my passion for Bitcoin is the closest thing I've got to like a North Star religion in my life. So I kind of got the analogy a little bit too much in a way. But and then I started thinking, well, your immediate reaction to that is that that's a negative thing, right? Like Bitcoin, a religion, means that we're just trying to get passionate followers and kind of pull people into this Ponzi. But that's not really what it's about. It's about having something that you believe in so strongly, so fundamentally that you want the world to move in that direction. And I kind of feel like that's the same way religion works, right? Like your passionate followers of any religion just want everybody to follow the same religion and the same ideals, the same moral compass, and then we're all better off for it. I think that Bitcoin is the same for me. Like I think that the world is better off with Bitcoin. And the more of us that are passionate about Bitcoin, adoption of Bitcoin, the better the world will be. So, there are strong parallels there, but I'd like your view, Peter, on that for sure, and Ranald.
Yeah, I think this is one for another time, but what you touched on there, I think, is something that we should talk about, which is why is Bitcoin not a Ponzi scheme? How is it like? I can see the arguments for and against, but I think there's a lot to unpack there, because at the end of the day, it's the early adopters of Bitcoin that are going to profit the most from the price of Bitcoin to fiat skyrocketing or the next bull run, right? And then the people who pay the price are the latecomers. But yeah, I mean, like at the end of the day, like the banking the unbanked, the energy use case, like you've mentioned, but it's still something that like I haven't been able to argue against.
Okay, so we got some topics there. I know that one's been done before. The whole bit is Bitcoin a Ponzi, but let's have that discussion, and then maybe like link that to the similarities and the differences between like crypto or Bitcoin and religion.
There's an article published by China News Asia today about how FTX, how they ignored basic accounting, and why a lot of people who are graduating uni these days aren't seeing accounting as sexy, right? But that's the reality. Accounting is never sexy. What? Everyone wants to move into fintech. Everyone wants to move into technology. Who would have thought, right? Accountants can be sexy. Just look
Ranald, if you're the face of accounting, then accounting more sexy, surely.
Not with these crow's feet, mate. But yeah, so like we should talk about what financial controls should FTX have had in place to prevent all this from happening.
Yeah,
I think that'll be a good one to do. That's relevant to this podcast.
Yeah, no, it's a good one. I like that idea.
I enjoy spending time with you guys way too much.
Yes, it almost sounded sarcastic, but
no,
I really like that polo you have on.
Oh, this one. Yeah, Ronald gave me this top. Do you know the sad part about this top?
Tell me.
When he gave it to me, it was about 2 sizes too big, and now it kind of fits.
Well, maybe that's just the tumble dryer shrinking it.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that.
Maybe not.
It was my foresight. I just thought he'll grow into it.
It's what happens when you go to the gym for 6 months. But, anyway, today's the day to exercise and buy Bitcoin.
Today's always the day.
Any parting words from you guys?
There's still time to buy Bitcoin for Christmas. I think
Not that
the
this
12
is
words,
financial advice to anyone. Like it's just a,
the 12 words of, yeah, the 12 words of Christmas, or the 12 days of Christmas, should just be the 12-word seed phrase that you hand to somebody when you're handing them. And there you go. Like it's I believe the best gift you'll ever give in terms of teaching them about it, and in terms of my view on where it's heading in the future. So there you go. Something to consider as a last minute. And the great thing is, Bitcoin never closes, right? So, you've got to worry about the last time any of those retailers send out deliveries to you. Don't worry about that. You can be Christmas Eve, late at night, set up a wallet, buy some Bitcoin, put it in the wallet, and it's ready the next morning. Unbelievable.
And you're good. You're good.
It is the religion, Peter. Anyway, guys, it's been awesome talking to you. I love spending time with you, but I got another meeting to go to.
All right, cheers. Take care.
Cheers, guys.
See you guys.
Merry Christmas.
Cheers.